And I guess bringing in a new White Wolf at this point in the season, a bold move and a tall order for Liam.
And of course, he wanted to honor the character that had already been set up, because he knows that he's stepping into a role. But at the same time, he wanted to make sure that his performance was authentic, that it felt like him, that he wasn't playing and mimicking anything. And so
let's just say the reaction is exactly what we expected. It is getting completely and totally annihilated by the fans. In fact, season 4 earned series low Rotten Tomatoes score as Liam Hemsworth Geralt arrives on Netflix.
I'm the most annoying guy on set because I'm saying, excuse me, you do realize that this should be happening and they wouldn't do that, and you haven't read this, that means this would be impossible. And everyone's just going, Henry, just shut up and do the thing. And I'm like, I don't want to do the thing because he wouldn't do it this way, and he can do it.
And that's where you start to get more uncomfortable and you're thinking, there's not a performance.
The Witcher Season 4 is out, and looks like they needed Henry after all. 56% critic score, 17% audience score, and if you're like, wow, I really trust the critics, the audience is probably just review bombing it, then you're gonna have to explain why the top critics is 33% as well. That means 2/3 of them didn't think it was above a 5.
It was posted last night. Netflix's Q2 report came out, and apparently they lost 1 million subscribers in the second quarter of this year, which we already saw that at the beginning of the year, they lost 200,000. The next month, they lost another couple 100,000, and they had projected that they were going to lose a couple million over the next few months. I don't really think people believed it, but it happened.
Millions of people are canceling their Netflix subscriptions. Why Netflix stock is absolutely tanking right now. I mean, it is just collapsing totally in the red. And you can see that it is on a massive downward slope this month. It's cratering. Why is that happening?
And you have a sense that you're going, is this really necessary?
I watched about 35, 40 minutes of the first episode, and I ended up texting Gary. And I just said, dude, I cannot do this. I'm 40 odd minutes in. I'm done. I've had enough. This is utter.
As the years have gone by, Netflix's Witcher series has gotten worse and worse. Recasts, rewrites, moving further away from the source material has truly damaged this show to the point of no return. There's no way that they could save it going into the last season. But now that season 4 is out and we only have one more to go, this show is basically hated by everybody.
Let me ask you guys something. Are you excited for Witcher Season 4?
Isn't it out right now on Netflix?
Just coming out, and the reviews have started to drop. So
because I looked on Rotten Tomatoes, and bear in mind, given the backlash, I would expect a little bit of review bombing. So people who haven't seen it but who hate the concept. Oh no, you're behind, Drinker.
Has it changed?
It's down to 17%.
Something just snapped in the Witcher fandom, and it's not what Netflix expected. Only 8 days after Season 4 dropped, the internet has turned into a full-blown battlefield.
For all the positive reviews, well, you've got IGN, that's never a good sign, and as Critical Drinker says, they can't exactly be trusted when The Penguin got a 5, The Witcher got a 7, and The Marvels got an 8. It basically looks like their score goes up the more girl power a series has. Siri. Although they did give Willow a 9, so there are times when they absolutely knock it out of the park.
Reddit threads are on fire, reviews are tanking, and YouTube critics are tearing the show apart like never before. But the real shock isn't the backlash itself, it's who decided to speak up. Because after staying silent for months, Henry Cavill just went off, and the words he aimed at the show's creator, Lauren Schmidt-Hissrich, are setting the entire industry on edge.
Were you familiar with this, the Watcher before you, The Witcher, before you started?
I hadn't seen the TV show, and I hadn't read the...
It's almost poetic, really. The same man who once carried the series, who fought to keep it true to the source material, who became Geralt of Rivia in every sense, is now watching the world he helped build collapse right in front of him. And fans, they're furious, embarrassed, and heartbroken all at once. What was supposed to be a fresh start, a new era with Liam Hemsworth taking over the role, has instead turned into one of Netflix's biggest flops of the year.
What the f is this piece of shit?
Viewers are calling it soulless, cheap, unrecognizable, and the numbers reflect that. Ratings have plummeted, and social media sentiment is savage. But underneath all of this chaos, there's something deeper. A story about betrayal, creative ego, and one man's refusal to watch his legacy burn. Because if what insiders are saying is true, Henry Cavill didn't just quietly walk away. He warned them this would happen, and when it finally did, he made sure the world knew exactly who was responsible. But before we get to Cavill's explosive comments, let's rewind to where everything started falling apart. The first signs of trouble hit just hours after The Witcher. Season 4 premiered on October 30th. What should have been a celebration quickly spiraled into disaster. Fans flooded X, Reddit, and TikTok with clips roasting the new tone, calling it generic fantasy and a parody of itself. Within days, the Rotten Tomatoes audience score dipped into the low 40s, and it kept dropping. Even loyal fans who tried to stay positive admitted something was off. The writing felt hollow, the pacing dragged, and most painfully, Geralt didn't feel like Geralt anymore. Enter Liam Hemsworth. Now, it's not like fans wanted to hate him. They really didn't. When he was announced, many hoped he'd surprise everyone, maybe even bring something fresh to the role. But when the episodes dropped, that hope disappeared fast. Comments poured in saying he looked uncomfortable, sounded unsure, or felt like a cosplay version of Cavill. One viral Reddit post summed it up perfectly. It's like watching someone imitate Geralt rather than be him. And that's where the real storm began. Fans started comparing every scene. Cavill's stoic intensity versus Hemsworth's uncertain delivery. Side-by-side clips went viral overnight, racking up millions of views. And the message was clear. Henry Cavill wasn't just an actor, he was the soul of the show. By day 3, #NotMyGeralt was trending worldwide. Viewers were begging Netflix to bring Cavill back, calling the recast a creative disaster. But the backlash didn't stop there. Critics accused the writers of abandoning the darker, more grounded tone that made seasons 1 and 2 so captivating. It wasn't just a bad season, it felt like a betrayal. And while fans vented their rage online, Cavill himself was watching it all unfold, quietly at first. But that silence wouldn't last long, because soon after, something happened. A cryptic post, a subtle jab, a quiet storm that told the world Henry Cavill had something very personal to say about what The Witcher had become. Henry Cavill has always played the diplomat. Even when fans begged him to spill what really happened behind the scenes, he kept it classy, respectful, calm, professional. But every so often, he'd say something that gave people a glimpse of what he really thought. In one older interview, he mentioned how he was fighting to keep Geralt true to the books. At the time, it sounded harmless. But now, in light of Season 4's flop, those words hit very differently. Because this week, a mysterious post appeared on one of Cavill's fan accounts, quoting him directly. "Stories lose their soul when those telling them stop respecting where they came from." Fans instantly connected the dots. Was this Henry's way of taking a shot at the new season? Whether it was real or not, the quote spread like wildfire. YouTube channels, gossip sites, and even entertainment blogs picked it up. The narrative was set. Cavill had finally spoken, and he wasn't holding back. And here's where things get really interesting. Insiders claimed that Henry had privately warned Lauren Schmidt-Hissrich and the writing team long before his exit, telling them the scripts were losing touch with what made The Witcher special. Instead of leaning into the dark, philosophical tone of Sapkowski's novels, they were modernizing it into something unrecognizable. It is said that he left not because of scheduling conflicts or contracts, but because he couldn't stand watching the series drift away from its heart. So when Season 4 bombed and fans turned on Netflix, it almost felt like validation, like Henry had seen this coming all along. One tweet summed it up perfectly. Henry Cavill didn't leave The Witcher. The Witcher left Henry Cavill. And as those words went viral, it set the stage for what came next. An even more explosive revelation that would drag both Lauren Schmidt-Hissrich and Netflix into the center of a storm they never saw coming. Because Henry Cavill was done being quiet. By the time the backlash hit full force, Henry Cavill had already seen enough. Behind the scenes, rumors started swirling. Whispers of a tense exchange between Cavill and showrunner Lauren Schmidt-Hissrich, one that supposedly happened before the season even dropped. According to one insider, Henry had privately reached out after seeing early cuts of the new season. What he saw, they claimed, left him stunned. Gone was the gritty tone, the emotional weight, the philosophical edge that made The Witcher feel authentic. Instead, it looked, in his words, like a fantasy parody trying to be clever. That's when the conversation reportedly turned sharp. Cavill, always professional but unflinchingly honest, allegedly told Lauren that she'd stripped the story of its heart. Those who claim to have heard about the exchange said he didn't yell, didn't curse, he just spoke with that quiet authority that made his words sting twice as hard. Lauren, however, wasn't having it. She defended the creative choices, insisting that the show needed to evolve, that audiences wanted something fresh and cinematic. Henry disagreed. He reminded her what made fans fall in love with Geralt in the first place. The complexity, the solitude, the raw humanity buried beneath the monster hunter's stoicism. But it didn't matter. The decision was already made, and the scripts were already locked. Cavill walked away from the meeting reportedly frustrated but composed, realizing that no amount of reasoning could fix what was coming. Fast forward to now, and that conversation suddenly feels prophetic. When the show flopped, fans started digging, and word of that creative clash began spreading like wildfire across social media. People began connecting dots. The tone shift, Cavill's exit, the creative differences. It all fit together, and when one entertainment blog reported that Cavill had personally warned the showrunners this would happen, fans didn't hesitate to believe it. Because for them, it made perfect sense. He wasn't just an actor walking away from a bad show, he was an artist watching his creation crumble because people stopped listening. And that sense of betrayal, it hit the fandom like a thunderclap. Because if the man who was Geralt of Rivia couldn't even save the show from its own creators, then maybe The Witcher's downfall was inevitable. But what happened next would take the backlash to an entirely new level. Because fans weren't just angry anymore, they were ready for war. The day after the Cavill confrontation story broke, social media went absolutely feral. Hashtags like #JusticeForHenry, #FireLauren, and #NotMyWitcher started trending worldwide. Within hours, fan edits flooded TikTok. Montages comparing Cavill's iconic scenes to Hemsworth's first appearance, set to dramatic music and captions like, "They replaced a legend with a placeholder." Reddit turned into a battlefield. Every post, every thread, every meme was another punch thrown at Netflix. One viral comment read, "You don't replace the soul of a show and expect it to survive." Thousands agreed. Even critics who'd once defended the creative direction began to flip. YouTube reviewers with millions of subscribers posted video titles like "The Witcher Season 4 is a disaster without Cavill" and "How Netflix destroyed its own franchise." And then came the petitions. Tens of thousands of signatures demanding Netflix either cancel the show or somehow convince Cavill to return. Fans even joked that they'd rather watch reruns of Season 2 on loop than sit through another episode of Season 4. But beneath the humor was real heartbreak. For many, The Witcher wasn't just another fantasy series. It was something deeper. Cavill's passion for the lore, his attention to detail, his love for the source material made fans feel like they were part of something special. Watching that vanish felt personal. As one tweet with over 500,000 likes put it, Henry Cavill didn't just play Geralt, he respected him, and that's what Netflix forgot. Meanwhile, Liam Hemsworth found himself caught in the crossfire. Even though he wasn't to blame, the internet turned on him fast. Comments flooded his posts, some sympathetic, others ruthless. People said he never stood a chance, that Netflix had set him up to fail. It got so bad that his team reportedly limited his social media activity just to stop the wave of negativity. And through all this chaos, Netflix stayed silent. No statements, no defense, nothing. It was as if they were hoping the storm would blow over, but it didn't. It just kept building, louder, meaner, more relentless. Because this wasn't just about a bad season anymore. It had become a symbol, a moment where fans finally stood up and said, "Stop ruining what we love." And as all eyes turned toward Henry Cavill, waiting to see if he'd respond again, something unexpected happened. A move that would change the narrative completely, because Henry wasn't done talking. It started quietly, just one post, a single message that set the entire fandom ablaze. Late one night, an account tied to Henry Cavill's official team shared a cryptic quote on social media. No explanation, no hashtags, just 12 words. "You can't claim to honor a story if you don't understand it." That was it. No context, no image, just those words. But within minutes, fans knew exactly what he was talking about. The post spread faster than wildfire. Screenshots flooded Twitter, Instagram, and Reddit. Within hours, Henry Cavill was trending in over a dozen countries. People called it the most polite explosion ever. Even major entertainment outlets ran headlines like "Henry Cavill breaks his silence" and "Fans are losing it." Comment sections filled up with praise and fury. Some fans were emotional, thanking him for finally saying what everyone felt. Others went even further, directly tagging Netflix and demanding accountability from the show's creators. And what made it even more powerful? Cavill never clarified a thing. He didn't confirm it was about The Witcher. He didn't deny it either. He just left it there, hanging in the air like a thundercloud waiting to burst. But insiders claimed there was more going on behind the scenes. According to one anonymous crew member, Cavill had been approached for an interview to clear the air. They said he refused, unless he could speak honestly. And when Netflix allegedly tried to negotiate the terms, he walked away. That only added fuel to the fire. Fans began to see Cavill as the underdog, the man who stood up to corporate meddling and refused to be silenced. Memes started circulating comparing him to Geralt himself, walking away from chaos with his sword on his back, dignity intact. And then, out of nowhere, a leaked message began making the rounds. Supposedly a text Cavill sent to a former co-star saying, "I wish them the best, but they forgot what The Witcher means to people." No one could prove it was real, but by then, it didn't even matter. The damage was done. Cavill had spoken. Maybe not directly, maybe not loudly, but enough for everyone to hear him. And as his words echoed across the internet, Netflix suddenly found itself facing the one thing it couldn't control: public opinion. Because now, it wasn't just about bad reviews or creative choices. It was about pride. It was about respect. And for the first time, Netflix was on the losing side of its own story. But instead of stepping forward to address it, they made a decision that would make everything so much worse. When the storm hit full force, Netflix did what it always does. It went quiet. No official statement, no clarification, no acknowledgement of the backlash. The Witcher's official accounts kept posting clips, trailers, and behind-the-scenes interviews like nothing was happening. But the silence spoke volumes. Fans weren't just angry anymore. They were insulted. It felt like Netflix was ignoring them completely, pretending that hundreds of thousands of frustrated viewers didn't exist. Then came the spin. A few days later, a handful of entertainment blogs suddenly began publishing eerily similar articles. Why Liam Hemsworth deserves a chance. Henry Cavill's exit was always the plan. Season 4 marks a bold new direction. People saw right through it. They called it what it was, damage control, and it backfired spectacularly. Because for every corporate-friendly headline, there were 1,000 fan posts calling Netflix out. Memes roasting the PR effort flooded social feeds. One viral TikTok even showed a fan dramatically throwing away their Witcher merch to the sound of Cavill's quote echoing in the background. You can't claim to honor a story if you don't understand it. Internally, reports claimed morale at Netflix's production offices was tense. Staff were allegedly instructed to avoid discussing The Witcher publicly. Even cast members started distancing themselves from promotional content. Liam Hemsworth, once hyped as the new face of the franchise, went radio silent. Meanwhile, viewers kept disappearing. Streaming data began leaking online, showing viewership dropping by more than 60% compared to Season 3 within the first week. Critics called it a meltdown in real time. And through it all, Cavill remained completely silent. No interviews, no follow-ups, just calm, calculated absence, which somehow made him look even more powerful. Fans began treating him like a symbol, a stand against what they saw as corporate arrogance and creative betrayal. By the 8th day, even Netflix executives reportedly knew the truth. The Witcher was no longer a fantasy epic. It had become a cautionary tale. But if they thought the storm had peaked, they were wrong. Because what happened next would push the fandom into full rebellion mode. Because now, even insiders from within Netflix were starting to speak out. By the second week after The Witcher Season 4's release, the silence from Netflix finally started to crack. But not in the way they wanted. Anonymous insiders began speaking out, and what they revealed only made the situation worse. According to several reports, tension inside Netflix's offices had reached an all-time high. Internal emails described the rollout as underperforming beyond projections. Behind closed doors, executives were reportedly pointing fingers, blaming marketing, production, and even fan hate for the show's collapse. But the real blow came when one supposed insider leaked a thread claiming that several writers from the original team had warned the showrunners that replacing Cavill was a risk they might not recover from. Those warnings, the thread claimed, were dismissed outright. Even more explosive was a second leak, a document showing Netflix had spent millions on an image recovery campaign meant to soften the backlash toward Liam Hemsworth. Fans called it pathetic, saying Netflix was spending more to fix the narrative than to fix the story. By now, YouTubers and entertainment journalists were picking apart every frame of Season 4, pointing out continuity errors, cheap visual effects, and awkward dialogue. The more they exposed, the angrier the audience became. And in the middle of this chaos, another story broke, that several crew members had quietly reached out to Cavill, expressing regret for how things ended. One even said, "We should have listened." That single quote spread everywhere. Fans latched onto it like a rallying cry. They began reposting it with the caption, "We should have listened, and now it's too late." Even people who'd never watched The Witcher were getting caught up in the drama. It had become more than a show. It was a pop culture war between creativity and corporate ego. And through it all, Henry Cavill's name remained untarnished. In fact, his reputation grew stronger. He was now seen as the actor who stood up for integrity, the guy who cared more about storytelling than money. Every headline, every video, every meme kept driving one message home. Netflix didn't just lose a star, they lost the trust of their audience. But what came next cemented this story as legend, because the fallout didn't just end with The Witcher, it changed the future of the franchise forever. By November, the numbers were undeniable. The Witcher Season 4 had officially become one of Netflix's worst-performing fantasy releases in years. Critics called it an identity crisis, fans called it unwatchable, and industry analysts called it a brand implosion. But among the chaos, one truth became clear. Henry Cavill had won the war without saying a word. Every article, every podcast, every online thread eventually circled back to him. The man who predicted the downfall, warned the showrunners, and walked away before the ship sank. He wasn't gloating. He wasn't celebrating. He was simply moving on, working on new projects, staying focused, and proving that sometimes silence says more than any statement ever could. Meanwhile, Netflix faced a savage reality. Merchandise sales plummeted, subscriber engagement dropped, and with every passing day, fans lost interest in a show that no longer felt alive. Even Liam Hemsworth, caught in the crossfire, began to fade from the spotlight, a talented actor who inherited an impossible situation. Behind the scenes, there were whispers of a soft reboot, of Netflix considering yet another creative overhaul to save the franchise. But fans didn't buy it. Trust had been broken, and once trust is gone, even magic can't bring it back. So where does this leave The Witcher now? For some, it's over, a cautionary tale of how corporate interference can destroy something powerful. For others, it's a reminder of why passion matters in storytelling. Because when an actor like Henry Cavill fights for authenticity, it isn't just about the script, it's about respect for the fans, for the world, and for the story that made it all possible. As the dust settles, one thing is certain. Henry Cavill may have walked away from The Witcher, but The Witcher will never walk away from him. Because in the hearts of fans everywhere, there's only one true Geralt of Rivia, and no amount of PR, recasting, or rewriting can ever change that. And if the rumors are true that Cavill still has more to say about what really went down behind the scenes, well, Netflix might want to brace itself, because this story, it's far from over.